She never sat on the throne, never commanded troops, yet sultans lived and died by her word. Her name was Kösem Sultan, and for nearly 40 years she controlled the Ottoman Empire from a place women weren't supposed to leave. This is the story of how a slave became the most dangerous woman in the world. Kösem wasn't born into power. She was born on the Greek island of Tinos around 1589. Her real name is lost to history. What we do know is that Ottoman raiders captured her as a teenager and brought her to Istanbul. She was sold into the imperial harem, a massive complex inside Topkapi Palace, where the Sultan's women lived in strict seclusion. The harem wasn't a fantasy, it was a prison dressed in silk. Hundreds of women lived there, competing for the Sultan's attention. Most died forgotten. But Kösem had something the others didn't: intelligence, patience, and a willingness to play the longest game. She caught the eye of Sultan Ahmed I when she was just 14. He was only 15 himself. Two teenagers thrust into the center of an empire that stretched from Hungary to Yemen, from Algeria to Iraq. Ahmed was charmed by her, but Kösem didn't just charm him, she studied him. She learned how power worked in the palace, who whispered in his ear, who controlled the money, who commanded loyalty. And she gave him sons, 4 of them. In the Ottoman system, sons meant survival. Each prince was a potential sultan, and each mother was a potential queen. But here's where the story gets dangerous. In 1617, Ahmed died suddenly. He was only 27. The empire fell into chaos. Who would rule next? Ahmed's younger brother Mustafa was chosen, but Mustafa was mentally unstable. He couldn't govern. The state was paralyzed. Kösem saw her opening. She didn't make speeches or lead armies. She did something smarter. She convinced the palace officials that Mustafa needed to be removed, and she made sure her own son, Murad IV, was next in line. There was just one problem. Murad was only 11 years old. So Kösem did what no woman in Ottoman history had done before. She ruled in his name. She attended state meetings behind a golden screen, invisible but in control. Ambassadors reported hearing her voice giving orders. Ministers received letters with her seal. She controlled the treasury, the military appointments, the wars, the treaties. And she did it all from the harem. The empire was collapsing. Rebellions erupted across Anatolia. The Janissaries, the elite soldiers of the empire, were out of control, murdering officials in the streets of Istanbul. Enemies surrounded the borders. Persia pressed from the east. Venice and the Habsburgs squeezed from the west. Kösem held it together. She negotiated with rebel leaders. She bribed Janissary commanders. She arranged marriages between her children and powerful families to secure alliances. She spent years walking a tightrope, keeping her son on the throne while 100 factions tried to tear him down. But Murad grew up, and he didn't want his mother ruling for him anymore. By the time he turned 20, Murad had become brutal and paranoid. He began killing anyone he suspected of disloyalty, his own officials, his friends, even some of his brothers. Murad believed his mother had too much power, so he sidelined her. He stopped listening. He ruled through fear and violence, executing thousands. Kösem watched and waited. Murad died in 1640. He was only 28. Some say it was illness. Others whispered poison. What we know for certain is that Kösem's second son, Ibrahim, became sultan. And Ibrahim was worse than Mustafa. He was erratic, violent, and obsessed with pleasure. He emptied the treasury on lavish parties while soldiers went unpaid. He drowned his own concubines in the Bosphorus when they displeased him. The empire teetered on the edge of collapse. Kösem tried to control him, but Ibrahim resisted. He surrounded himself with corrupt advisors who hated her. She lost access to the inner court. For the first time in decades, Kösem was losing her grip. So she made a decision that shocked the empire. In 1648, she supported a palace coup to remove her own son from power. Ibrahim was deposed, imprisoned, and strangled. Kösem's 7-year-old grandson, Mehmed IV, became sultan. And once again, Kösem ruled the empire. If you're hooked on this story, do me a favor. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from. And if you haven't subscribed yet, hit that button and turn on notifications so you don't miss the ending. Trust me, you'll want to see how this ends. By 1651, Kösem Sultan had been the real power behind the throne for over 30 years. She had outlasted wars, plagues, rebellions, and 3 sultans. She controlled appointments. She negotiated with foreign powers. She held the loyalty of the Janissaries, the most dangerous military force in the world. But she had one enemy she couldn't control: her daughter-in-law. Turhan Sultan was Mehmed IV's mother, and by Ottoman tradition, the Sultan's mother held the title of Valide Sultan, the Queen Mother. That title came with power, money, and influence. But Kösem refused to step aside. She had been Valide Sultan twice already. She wasn't about to give it up to a younger woman. The 2 women despised each other. Turhan was ambitious and ruthless. She wanted full control over her son. Kösem saw her as a threat. The palace split into factions. Officials chose sides. The Janissaries backed Kösem. But Turhan had the support of the palace eunuchs, the men who controlled access to the Sultan. Tension built for months. Then, Kösem made a fatal mistake. In September 1651, rumors spread that Kösem was planning to depose her grandson Mehmed and replace him with another prince, one she could control more easily. Whether this was true or just propaganda from Turhan's allies, we don't know. But Turhan believed it, and she acted first. On the night of September 2nd, 1651, a group of eunuchs loyal to Turhan broke into Kösem's chambers in the harem. They found her hiding behind a cabinet. She fought back, clawing at them, screaming for help. But no one came. They strangled her with a curtain. Kösem Sultan, the woman who had ruled an empire for nearly 40 years, died alone in the dark, murdered by men she once commanded. She was around 62 years old. Her body was displayed in the palace as proof of her death. Then she was buried in a simple tomb next to Sultan Ahmed, the teenage husband who had loved her so long ago. Turhan Sultan took full control of the empire. The Janissaries, enraged by Kösem's murder, rioted for days. But Turhan crushed them. She ruled in her son's name for another 30 years, following the exact playbook Kösem had written. History remembers Kösem Sultan as one of the most powerful women who ever lived. She never wore a crown. She never gave a public speech. She never even showed her face in court. But she controlled sultans, generals, and an empire that spanned 3 continents. She did it all from a place women were supposed to be invisible. Kösem's story forces us to ask a question. What is power really? Is it sitting on a throne? Commanding armies? Or is it knowing who to whisper to, who to pay, who to remove? She understood something most rulers never learn. Power isn't about being seen. It's about being indispensable. For 40 years, no one could govern the Ottoman Empire without her. Not her husband, not her sons, not even her enemies. She played a game men invented, with rules designed to keep her powerless. And she won. Until she didn't. Because the thing about power is this: the moment people stop fearing you, you're already dead. Kösem knew that. She lived by it. And in the end, she died because someone stopped being afraid.